So, Kevin, here we have a readathon.
Another readathon.
Canton, man. Canton, Massachusetts.
Okay, yeah.
In many ways, like many small New England towns, they had a riotous select board meeting last night.
Yes.
Now, people will say this meeting was bananas in the public comment section, but you rightly pointed out to me as we were watching the video that, context aside, riotous select board meetings before the business of the night, like public comment portion.
Yeah.
Talk about what that's like, because you've covered millions of these.
Rebecca, I've been to more aldermanic board meetings and you've had hot meals. Okay. And whether it's Board of Aldermen, City Council, Selectmen, that almost always, well, I think probably always, on their agenda, weekly or bi-weekly agenda, they have a section right up before new business for public comment, which people come up and they make statements of all kinds, whether it's directed, sometimes it's directed at members of the board, and sometimes it's inappropriate. Sometimes they try to answer questions and solicit a conversation, which is typically out of order, and they're told that they're out of order.
Or they're at the wrong forum. It's about school taxes, and that's not what it's about, or zoning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets disruptive. Absolutely. And the chairman or chairwoman of the board.
Or chairperson.
Whatever AP style you want to use for that elected official, they have an obligation to maintain order in the meeting. So that does on occasion mean that an officer will be asked to escort somebody out.
Right.
And that's on the basis not of what they're saying, but on the basis of their being disruptive,
right.
And, disorderly.
Right.
And so the meeting may go on. And I have seen things get really crazy. I mean, I haven't seen anybody throw punches or anything like that, and that's not what we're going to see. But it is rare, but not unheard of, not unprecedented. And you should just go to your local board meeting and watch.
Especially New England.
Yeah. So someone's going to come up and talk about 5G networks in the community. Someone's going to come up and talk about how their street wasn't paved. And then somebody's going to come up and, accuse all the elected officials of being part of, QAnon and sucking the blood from children. And, they go on either too long, they don't stop when they're supposed to, or people in the audience start screaming. Yeah, law enforcement officer who is detached to that meeting specifically for this reason will ask them to come out. And
Question.
I do remember. Yeah.
How often, though, are all the public comments prior to the meeting about police corruption in the town where the meeting is happening?
Non-police corruption. Yeah. I have seen this budget does this to the athletic.
Have you ever seen this?
No. I haven't seen. I have not seen this.
Okay, so let's set the scene.
Okay.
Last night there was a town select board in Canton, and for those of you who live in larger towns or outside of New England or places where this is not the governmental structure, they have a select board, which is the governing body of the town.
Right, and the logistics of the day-to-day is handled by a city manager,
right,
who is an appointed employee. So yeah, that's the way. And whoever, I guess, it's either elected or whoever gets the most votes becomes the chair of the select.
Yeah. It's
board.
usually like a group of 20 people runs, the people with the most votes win. It's like there is a group of 5 people or whatever that runs the town, and then everyone else is an employee. You hire and the select board, by the way, hires the employees. They hire the chief of police. They hire the city manager.
They approve the contracts. Right. They do all that business.
All the business. Yeah. And so, even on our town of just 6,000 people, we have a select board. And some large towns like Concord, New Hampshire, there actually is a mayor and a select board. Sometimes it does work that way as well. Okay, so I don't know if Canton has a mayor or not, but in this case, Canton does have a select board that is in charge of the business of the town. All right, so there was a select board meeting in Canton last night. Apparently, it's a bi-weekly meeting. We have a couple of very vocal citizens of Canton who've been showing up, by the way, for months. They are not new characters at these meetings. They've been showing up for months and months and months and months. Real citizens, not just pro-Karen Reed people, but concerned citizens. The two most prominent right now that have been showing up and been really vocal are Rita Lombardi, who we heard from earlier on this podcast in a little news interview she did outside of another select board meeting, and also Jennifer O'Donnell. And
we should remind folks why the select board is really important to this story.
Absolutely, because Chris Albert, the brother of Brian Albert, the homeowner at 34 Fairview, is on the select board.
Right.
And Chris Albert is a business owner in town. He owns the pizza shop, outside of which Turtle Boy, Aidan Kearney, got into an altercation with all the Alberts a couple weeks ago.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so.
And by the way, folks, stay to the end because there was also a big surprise announcement.
All right, so last night at the Canton Select Board meeting, I'm not going to play all the tape. It's about 20-something minutes long. I will post the link to the YouTube in the show notes for this episode so you can watch the whole thing. And honestly, first 10 minutes of it is where all the action happens and a lot of shit goes down. I would highly recommend just watching it. It's pretty interesting. There's a lot of initial comments about the reappointing of Police Chief Rafferty. A lot of public gets up and really talks about that. And Police Chief Rafferty was the police chief that was appointed after the retirement of Ken Berkowitz. Now, you might remember Ken Berkowitz did a surprise retirement in shortly after the Karen Reed's case really started heating up.
Okay.
Ken Berkowitz also Ken Berkowitz also found a piece of taillight that he then gave to Trooper Proctor.
Even though that police force was supposedly
correct.
Recused from the case.
It was Ken Berkowitz's retirement party at which Brian Higgins allegedly made a speech. He was asked about it on the stand at the trial where he said, you want someone to help you hide a body, Ken Berkowitz is your man. Yep. No one can find that tape. It's the only speech that appears to be missing from all the tapes of the retirement party. Okay. Anyway, so
the most entertaining one. Yeah.
Back to the meeting last night. All right. So we hear from some people. We hear from somebody who's very, very angry, feels threatened, has had to move to Boston or something like that. Then we hear from Rita Lombardi, who gives a very impassioned set of reasons why the Select Board should not have reappointed and extended Chief Rafferty's contract. Let's just listen to that really quickly.
I know it's my imagination.
All right, folks, please be respectful. Ms. Lombardi, this is it?
Yes, thank you. Okay, listen, Rita Lombardi, and I can't believe I'm standing here about to say what I'm going to say. My ancestry goes back in this town to the very early 1900s, and I've always had respect for the Canton Police and the Fire Department because my ancestors served on them proudly, and I always admired them, and I'm shocked that I'm having this discussion right now. But anyways, the issues that we've had in town relate to safety and trust issues. And last week or whatever, you approved the police chief's contract, and many of us were opposed to that. And I just want to share some of the reasons why we have trust issues here. In 2018, the Canton Police Department responded to a car accident on Pleasant Street near Meadows, but did not locate the driver. An hour or so later, a passerby located the body of Craig Casey. This last year, when questioned by a concerned citizen, Chief Rafferty's response was, it wouldn't have made a difference to his survival. Instead of owning this failure, that was her explanation. In 2021, the Canton Police Department ruled Sandra Birchmore's death a suicide. It was recently confirmed that Sandra was in fact murdered, something many citizens already knew. Yet there has been zero acknowledgement of this policing failure by Chief Rafferty or an apology to Sandra's family that I am aware of. In 2022, the Canton Police Department responded to the scene of Officer John O'Keefe's murder. The mishandling of the crime scene, the investigation, and the evidence collection was gross incompetence at best and will be taught in criminal law classes for decades to come on how not to handle a murder crime scene. Instead of Chief Rafferty addressing these performance issues with appropriate corrective action, many, if not all involved, have been promoted. In any organization, rewarding poor performance not only damages employee morale, it increases employee turnover, both of which are extremely costly. Canton PD has an 18% turnover in the past 2 years. Oftentimes, it is your best employees who seek employment elsewhere, not the performance problem. If unchecked, your organization will continue on a downward spiral. In the John O'Keefe murder trial, we learned that it was Chief Rafferty who turned over the Sallyport surveillance video to the Mass State Police. We also learned that in addition to 42 minutes missing from this footage and people disappearing from the screen, and the footage was inverted, something no one has ever heard of in their life. 6 weeks it took her to report the February accident, which almost cost the man his life, and now we're being sued for that. And we're going to get sued for all these other cases as well. Policies and procedures are great, but there's no consequences when they're not followed. Just rhetoric that we'll do better next time. That just doesn't cut it. The Canton Police Department and this town is facing countless and costly lawsuits as a result of their actions. We do not feel safe. And that is why. Okay, I'm not speaking for you because you're part of the selected few. I'm talking about me, common folks. I'm talking about me, the random citizen. That's who I'm talking about.
Thank you, Ms.
Anyone
Lombardi.
who's related to the McAlberts, you're safe, but not us.
Thank you, Ms.
stop it.
Lombardi.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
So after Rita Lombardi speaks, Jennifer O'Donnell is very upset. And I believe this has to do with the fact that Jennifer O'Donnell spoke before and went over and was cut off or something. Mm-hmm. And the select board head calls her out for being disruptive, and she gets very upset. And a confrontation between her and somebody else in the audience, so to speak, is sort of like a standoff. And the police are called over. The policeman who's there is called over to remove her. And she gets even more upset. So let's listen to that.
Ms. O'Donnell, you said you were going to be quiet. You got disruptive. It is time for you to leave. Ms. O'Donnell, it is time for you to leave.
Take your hands off me. I took off my No, you're kicking and choosing to enforce the law. Yes, you are. No, you won't.
All right, can we just start our meeting? What are we doing here?
All right, so that's what you described as not uncommon?
I mean, it's not, to me, it's not surprising.
Right.
But yeah, that does happen. And that doesn't mean that it's not news or that it's not disturbing.
Right.
But yeah. That, that does happen. And especially with a heated issue like this.
Well, I want to roll back though.
Yeah.
Because Jennifer O'Donnell, I mean, she's here wearing a Lucky Loughran shirt. Mm-hmm. And she's very clearly on the very angry with the police side, very pro Karen Reed side, very like just pro corruption on the police side. But she was an early bell ringer here, a very early bell ringer. This was not her demeanor, her affect when she started showing up at these meetings. I think she's been a regular attendee at these meetings like forever.
Yeah.
I want to roll back to a meeting she attended back in March. So you can listen to what she was trying to say back then and maybe get some insight onto why she's so upset now.
Chris Albert, you and the Commonwealth brought the circus to our town. You and your bad judgment call after bad judgment call are the reason so many keep showing up. It's that simple. You are the sideshow. You claim to be a scared witness. You're not scared, Chris. This is a game to you. Don't know what happened that night, but we do know what's happened ever since. And you continue to abuse the seat that you sit in and use our resources as a town and a state for your personal protection, including using us as your human shield.
So do you understand, like, she's been ringing this bell for a long time, Kevin. It's been building and building. And like, if you live in Canton, you're a taxpayer, you used to be very pro-municipal, pro-police, pro-first responder, and you're just watching this happen and unfold. You could imagine, like, it reaching a point where you're like, what in the actual fuck? How is this contract being extended? Why is Chris Albert still sitting there? Like, how is this still you could imagine this, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So I think that's definitely, I feel for that level of anger to some extent.
Then two big things happened.
Two big things.
Speaking of Chris Albert.
Yes. So the chairman of the select board says, now we have a statement that we need to hear from Selectman Chris Albert. So let's just go ahead and roll Chris Albert making his pre-written statement, which I will say, he looked a little uncomfortable reading, but he went ahead and read it with some conviction anyway.
Okay, as many of you know, I've had two recent verbal altercations with members of the public outside of my role as a select board. Despite the tremendous harassment, stress, and anxiety that my family, extended family, and I have been subjected to over the past 16 months, my interactions were inappropriate, and as an elected official, I am held to a higher standard, and I understand that the residents of Canton expect public officials to always conduct themselves professionally and focus on the business of the town. I apologize for my recent reaction and will refrain from any further public incidents that are unbecoming as a member of this Canton Select Board. Thank you.
So the applause at the end here, I think what I saw was that, we'll call them both sides, seemed to acknowledge that this was necessary, and
I think the applause had different
admirable or
facial
whatever.
expressions.
Yeah,
I think one set of
was
applause was
overdue.
like, yay, good, that's admirable. And the other side was like, fuck you, applause. But both sides
fuck
did
you
applaud.
anyway. But
Yeah.
as far as like what satisfaction they think they could get from Kevin Albert on the select board,
Chris
short of
Albert.
resignation. What did I say?
Kevin. Oh, it's so confusing.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's so confusing.
All right, so Chris Albert, Selectman Chris Albert, short of him resigning, this was politically and morally a necessary step to apologize for his personal behavior.
I am looking forward
Yeah.
to seeing what happens the next time Aidan Kearney goes to get a meal of food at JF McCarthy's.
Yeah, he really should just stop poking that bear. Fucking go someplace else.
Yeah, well, he's a journalist. Then
A second big announcement.
a second big announcement. This is, by the way, this happens immediately afterwards. Like, you don't have to watch the tape and sit through an hour of content to watch. This happens all in
Right.
fucking 5-minute span.
Now that you've been removed from the building,
Next
let's go on to the
announcement.
next two things. Yeah, the next two agenda items.
An additional statement, Chief Rafferty has placed Kevin Albert on paid administrative leave while an outside, and please be quiet, while an outside independent investigation is being conducted relative to his actions in a case he investigated with Michael Proctor approximately 2 years ago. Kevin Albert was placed on leave on June 13th and will remain on leave until the results of the investigation are provided by the outside independent investigator.
Kevin Albert. Remember who that guy is?
Oh, yeah.
Who's that guy, Kevin?
Well, he's the brother of Chris Albert, Selectman Chris
and
Albert.
brother of who else?
Brother of Brian Albert, the homeowner where John O'Keefe's body was found.
And who else is he an acquaintance / friend of?
Well, he is he on the Canton Police?
Yes.
Okay. He is a Canton police officer who worked with a Massachusetts state trooper named Michael Proctor.
On what kind of case?
A cold case where they had such great success that they went out to celebrate one night, drinking. And as you will recall in the testimony on June 12th, that Proctor got a text message from Kevin Albert.
He read the text messages on June 12th on the stand.
Correct. He said in this text message, reading it, that Officer Kevin Albert texted Trooper Proctor asking, "Did I leave my badge and my gun in your cruiser?"
Yes.
After talking about how bad their hangovers were.
Yes.
And apparently, what we didn't know then, but we know now, is that on June 13th, that Albert was placed on leave. That's when
Paid administrative
leave,
Yes.
which is always the first step towards termination.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
This happened on June 13th. They meet every other week.
Mm-hmm.
Why was this announcement made after the trial's over? Again.
Yeah.
Kevin Albert is not a cop in this trial. He's not a witness in this trial. Once again, this information was withheld until after the trial is over. This really fucking bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
The residents of Canton had every right to question Kevin Albert's fitness as their public servant. They are paying his salary. They now have had a month during which they could have asked questions about this paid administrative leave. Like, why is it paid? They have had a month where they have been wondering whether or not this man who drank on duty or after duty in a police car was still their public servant whose salary they pay. And it took them a month. And I guarantee the only reason they held it back is they're waiting until after the trial. Why?
Well, let me just throw a couple of other things out there that, generally speaking, personnel issues are not public issues. They're not subject to public records requests. With discussions about that are held in a non-public session. But generally they have to come back into public session and report what whatever actions might have been taken. So when you're talking about personnel issues, it is way dicier than a job that you or I may have. Because imagine if Kevin Albert or one of his partners shot somebody, the process would probably play out the same. And if he stole money from the till, it would probably play out the same. The two things that I point at, one is that unlike the Massachusetts State Police, the Canton Police took immediate action by putting him on administrative leave. Your question, however, is, right, and Proctor, he wasn't reassigned until after the trial. Okay.
Which was also very problematic.
Right. Why? Then the question becomes, why announce this at all?
Yep.
And then why announce this now instead of immediately? I mean, I guess if I am a select board member, right, and I don't have a horse in this race, I would say, look, I feel we have this information. We've got people yelling and screaming. I feel it's appropriate to make this announcement.
Do you think maybe it was about to come out in the media?
And also, it comes from the chief, by the way.
Do you think it was about to come out in the media? Do you think maybe a reporter got a hold of it and they're worried about it coming out?
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. But, it seems like the chief is the one that sent this over. It wasn't the chairman of the board that said, hey, guys, I'm going to do this. The chief sent an official communication to the board, and they made the decision to announce it. And it was the right thing to do. Politically speaking, from a municipal governance way, it's the right thing to do. It's certainly the right thing to put him on administrative leave immediately. Because can you imagine anybody that you work with, if you're the boss in any industry and that comes out and you're public facing, that you'll go like, oh, sure, that sounds pretty bad. You have to act immediately. And they did. Yeah.
So we heard mention of another figure here when Rita Lombardi was talking.
Mm-hmm.
We heard about Sandra Birchmore.
Yes.
Sandra Birchmore was found in her Canton, Massachusetts apartment.
Right.
And her death was ruled a suicide, right? Mm-hmm. And the Canton police was involved in that investigation. Kevin Albert was one of the cops involved in that investigation.
Yes.
Okay.
Tying these two very controversial cases.
Not only with that, Lank, the officer Lank was also involved in the Sandra Birchmore case. Officer Lank, of course, was one of the first responders at the John O'Keefe death.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there is a link between these two cases. And Rita Lombardi got up. And by the way, I will be talking more about the Sandra Birchmore case once I have time to look into it. But shit keeps going down in this one. So Rita Lombardi got up and made some really very clear assertions about the police department and why this chief should not continue to have this job.
Is she interim? Is that
she was? Well, she was appointed as interim after.
Okay.
And then she was hired.
She's
and
no
they
longer
just gave her
interim.
a new contract.
Okay.
And we didn't play this tape, but before Rita Lombardi, a man who was not wearing a free Lucky Loughran t-shirt also got up with many questions. He said he tried to ask them before about why this. Apparently, the whole town is upset about this contract renewal.
And I do remember he tried to poll the members of the board, which is out of order.
Right.
It's not a question and answer. It's their public comment.
Yeah, you're only
but
allowed
it
to
still brought
comment.
it up.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what did you think of her? I mean, she had other issues too. Apparently, there was a scene of a car accident. The cops didn't find the victim of the car accident. A citizen did. And this chief apparently said, well, it wouldn't have made a difference in his survival anyway. Like, this chief seems to have a lot of issues.
The driver was found dead later away from the scene?
Either ejected or maybe ran out. I don't know. But apparently...
Usually that's the drunk driver who decides, I'm going to get away.
There are apparently a lot of continuing issues with this department.
Yep.
Rita Lombardi brings up some very good points, not just as a Karen Reed person, but as a taxpayer, right? I'm not wrong.
No. These are issues that have been out in the ether. And if we talk about accountability, there's a lot of institutions that need to step up, and municipal government here is one of them, especially if you are uncertain whether the Canton Police Department can, whether they can govern themselves when it comes to these kinds of allegations of misconduct. And especially when it's so clear. Yeah. It's very difficult to, just sort of brush aside and just like, oh, that's not a big deal. I mean, they tried it with this car accident, but it's, when you're on national television and like one of your officers, leaves a communication indicating that he was so drunk he may have left his service weapon. He might have misplaced his service weapon.
Yeah.
And his badge. Oh my God. So he's a detective, right? I mean, he's an officer, but he's a plainclothes detective.
I think so.
Like.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how he would be. Yeah.
So I still have a question as to why he was investigating a cold case on the Cape with Sherwood Proctor. But anyway, that's a separate question.
Yeah.
So one other thing I wanted to point out that occurred to me yesterday after we taped, listening. And by the way, I just want to tell our listeners, those of you who listened yesterday, you may have noticed that I, in the audio version of the podcast, edited the 911 911 part of the recording of the tape. I have criticized many podcasts for playing protracted long periods of 911 tape. In this case, it's contextual because it tells you something about what happened. But I found myself listening back of it, and without that visual context of watching the video, feeling myself uncomfortable just hearing somebody giving life-saving measures to a person on the ground. So I cut some of that out. I just want to let you know why I did that. But one of the things we heard on the tape was we heard Jen McCabe with the 911 operator. She gave the address, and then she said the Albert's house, Brian Albert's house. Like she said the name of the person at the house.
Yeah.
The assumption that the person would know whose house it was, right?
Maybe not, but yeah.
Do you know how big Canton, Massachusetts is?
No.
24,000 people.
That's a town. That's not
But it's actually it's big. I mean, it's big enough.
That's a small. No, it's
big enough though, where a person in this family would believe that on the 911 call saying the name would spark familiarity. This is something that occurred to me.
You think it's a signal?
Not
that they're saying like, I'm going to, like, anytime you mention, go to Lucky's house, if they knew where that would be, they wouldn't need an address or a number.
No.
You feel like driving the address and to drop his name is a signal to law. It's a signal to first responders, either good or bad.
What I'm saying is they would know him by name. Like, you would know who he is, right? Yeah. And I actually think that there's something to that, whether or not the person on the other end of the line knew him by name or not. The fact that Jennifer McCabe believed if she said the name that they would know who they were talking about. Because I believe that this family, the McCabes, the Alberts, do actually have a tremendous amount of influence, and that a lot of people do know who they are. Chris Albert's on the select board.
Yeah.
Brian Albert was a cop. Kevin Albert's a cop. There are like 7 siblings in this family, or 10 siblings in this family, something like that. Ton of fucking siblings.
Oh, really? There's more than that?
Oh, yeah.
There's more than those 3 brothers? Fuck.
Oh, my God. There's like 10. I think I want to say there are 10. It's either 7 or 10, and I'm sorry I can't remember the detail right now. Okay. I could look it up, but it's going to ruin my flow. There's either 7 or 10. That number sticks out with me. I think there's 1 girl, and the rest are boys. So there's, they are a dominant family in this town. And then when Lucky Loughran talked about not calling in the car he saw in front of the house as to not inconvenience the Alberts, and that clearly his dispatcher wouldn't mind that, you know what I mean? Like the town wouldn't mind. There is something to what we hear in this meeting, the frustration with the prolonged influence of this family and the corruption that they bring with it. And I just find that that's really coming out now with hearing this anger.
Oh, just my comment on that. We heard on the 911 call that 911 transferred that call to the Canton Police Department.
Correct.
So to drop his name would be, the person on it should be no surprise that the person on the other end of the phone would know who that is.
I understand that, but
that
still
doesn't seem nefarious at all to me. But it does seem like, how big is the Canton Police Department?
Big enough to serve 24,000 people.
Yeah,
so
I don't know how many officers that is, but I don't see anything more to that other than they've got the address, they know where they're supposed to go.
Okay.
They're mentioning the name, and it certainly was. If this person is connected at all, he's a law enforcement officer, not in that town, but man, if he's throwing after parties, then people know who he is.
There's a very interesting article in the Globe, I believe, about Brian Albert's income, his pension. He's like pulling like $9,000 a year right now in pension, and his income.
$9,000?
Yeah, and his last couple of years in the police department, he made like over $200,000 one of his final years as a BPD officer, 190 something the other year. The median income, by the way, in Canton is $130,000.
Can I just get that again? You're talking not $90,000.
No,
his annual pension.
No. His last 2 years of working as a Boston PD officer, one of his years of income was more than $220.
Sure.
And 1 year was $190, and his pension now is around $9,000 a month.
Oh no! Okay, you said a year. $9,000 a month.
Yeah, $9,000 a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a little more sense. Okay.
Yeah. So there's just an interesting article just sort of about what these guys are paid, what Proctor was paid, and I think the point was to illustrate. And then there's some comments under it, like people arguing, like, don't you think blah, blah, blah should be paid this? And it's like, yeah, but, so should teachers, so should whatever. It was like a very interesting thing that played out.
Yeah.
But it's like, should they be paid this when they're on leave? Should they be paid this when they're not, actually working for you? Should they be paid this when they're potentially lying about something that happened in their front yard? Like, That's the argument, right?
Police officers' salaries end up getting inflated because A, they put in a lot of overtime, and B, if they do things like traffic detail, like they're getting paid, the money they make getting paid for that gets added to that, and that determines the size of their pension.
Right.
Just like how that would determine the size of your Social Security check.
Right.
Yeah.
But we should say the Boston Police Department has just gotten through an enormous, long-running, federally investigated fraudulent overtime scheme.
Yeah, because it's so easy to...
Boston Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police.
I remember Trial 4, that documentary about Sean, I forget what his last name is. An issue about faking overtime was a factor in that, as I recall. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah,
I mean, these are officers who stole like $500,000 from the state, hundreds of thousands from the state, and from taxpayers. I mean, these are, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you see, I mean, there is something to it. I'm not saying that that Boston cops are systematically doing this. Every cop is doing that. But when you know of a cop who's very, very comfortable being untruthful about one thing, it's hard to look at that salary and be like, 100%, all earned.
Yep.
I'm just saying. And I understand why these taxpayers are dubious.
Sure. An officer is entitled to that money if he's earned it, put in for it.
Absolutely.
But if you change your time card and say that you were out there for 4 hours when you're out there for 2 hours.
If you're charging the taxpayers when you're actually drinking with Trooper Proctor.
Now, I was just going to point that one out.
That's a fucking problem.
If he's on duty all night while he's drinking so bad that he forgets his badge and his gun, then...
we got a problem.
Then there you go. There's another issue.
But we'll find out, I guess, when the results of the external investigation come in.
And good for that external investigation.
Well, we'll see who's doing it. But anyway.
Another external investigation.
All right, Jesus. Kevin. Thank you for sitting with me with this readathon to catch us up in the, readathon world of Canton, Massachusetts. And I guess we'll have to talk when it's next time to talk. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty soon.
Could be soon.
All right. Talk to you then.
Partners in Crime Media.